Good evening and welcome to the June 1, 2022 regular meeting of the Holland City Council. We're going to begin this, I would like to call the meeting to order. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Byrd.
Present.
Freeman.
Present.
Peters. Corbin. Coronado. Arnshorst.
Here.
Hoekstra.
Here.
Raymond.
Here.
Mayor Box.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll begin this evening's meeting as we have for many years, first with an opening prayer, followed immediately by the Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight's opening prayer was going to be with Councilmember Coronado, but she was not able to join us this evening. So I'd ask that you would join us in a moment of silence before the Pledge of Allegiance. If you're so inclined, please join us in a moment of silence. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item on the agenda are our consent agenda items. These are items that are considered to be fairly routine. They have been reviewed by council members as part of our weekly packet, and they will be enacted with one motion unless a member of the audience or a member of council asks to have an item removed from the consent agenda and placed in its regular order on the regular agenda. But before I ask for that, Kathy, would you please review the consent agenda for us?
4A, absence excused, Councilmember Coronado. 4C, oaths of office. 4D, claim filed against the city. 4E, finance placed delinquent ordinance violation invoices on summer 2022 property tax bills. Adopt resolution. 4F, finance quarterly investment report. 4G, finance speculative tax abatement. Set public hearing for PA 198 speculative tax abatement. 1285 Waverly Road. 4H, Downtown Group, Windmill Island Gardens, approval of art at the Island Gala special liquor license for 2022. 4I, Downtown Group, Windmill Island Gardens, approval to establish reserve fund at Community Foundation. 4J, Downtown Group, Windmill Island Gardens, approval of budget increase for new winter program. 4K, Management and Administrative Services, 2023 Strategic Plan and Business Plan. 4L, Management and Administrative Services, Downtown Development Authority Board, reappointment to the board.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. Is there any member of the audience who would like to have an item removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda? Seeing none. Any council member like to remove an item from the consent agenda and have it placed on the regular agenda?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to remove F and K, please.
F and K. So F, the quarterly investment report, will be placed at item 12E 4.2, and then item K, the management and administrative services, 12E 6.6. Will be placed in that order on the regular agenda as well. Any other members of council like to have an item removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda? For item K? Item K, 12E 6.6 is what I'm showing on my agenda. Yep. Anyone else? What is the pleasure of council in regard to the revised consent agenda?
Move we approve.
Moved by Hoekstra. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Vreeman. Any discussion? Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Byrd.
Yes.
Vreeman.
Yes.
Peters. Corbin. Arnshorst.
Yes.
Hoekstra.
Yes.
Raymond.
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, public comment. We provide the opportunity for public comment at all of our public meetings in the City of Holland as part of the Open Meetings Act of the State of Michigan. It gives you the opportunity to speak to us directly. This is one-way communication. This is an opportunity for you to let us know what you think is important. We don't answer questions at this time or engage in discussion, but gives you that opportunity to be able to speak directly to your elected officials. We do limit the time to 5 minutes, and we are strict about that. And there are 3 lights on the dais in front of me. There's a red light, a yellow light, and a green light. The green light means you're doing well on time. The yellow light means you have 1 minute left, and the red light means that your time has expired, and we will let you know when that happens. If you would like to address council, we just ask that you come forward, state your name and the municipality that you live in, so that we have that on the record. Having said that, is there anyone who would like to address council at this time? If so, please come forward. And even though you look familiar, would you please state your name and municipality for the record?
Yes, my name is Steve Kemker, resident of Ottawa County in Zeeland, Michigan, and I am the current sheriff of Ottawa County. And I am here tonight without an agenda. I know Keith was probably a little worried, and the mayor a little worried why the county sheriff is standing before you tonight. But just a little bit about myself. I started my career with the Holland City Police Department. I won't give you the year because it's going to age me very quickly. And because of that start with the Holland Police Department, I'm at where I'm at today. And I've always said thank you to Chuck Lindstrom from many years ago for giving a 18-year-old person that grew up here in the city of Holland the opportunity, and my career took off from there. So currently 33 years with the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office. And again, I think the city manager here knows me well enough, having worked side by side with him for several years, of what type of organization that we run for the county and our dedication and the service that we provide. Just a quick overview. The reason I'm here tonight is to say thank you. And from the Sheriff's Office, 250 employees strong, we are about the 6th largest Sheriff's Office now in the state of Michigan. As many of you probably already know and have heard from your chief of police, our primary mission is to provide a safe and secure environment in Ottawa County by preserving public order, reduce crime, provide safe and secure environments in our communities by way of constitutional policing. Victims of crime are our #1 priority and always will be. Our goal is to identify, understand, and address issues in our communities. We accomplish this through collaboration. And that's one of the reasons, again, I'm here tonight to say thank you, is that word of collaboration. We also do it through problem solving, working closely with our citizens, our community partnerships, and other organizations within Ottawa County and the other municipalities that we work with in Ottawa County. If you ever have the opportunity, I'd encourage you to take a look at our website, take a look at our mission statement, our core values, take a look at our annual report and see what the Sheriff's Department is, who we are, and what we do here in Ottawa County. And we also help service you here in the city. So again, for our staff, I strongly push the core values of professionalism, respect, integrity, dedication, excellence, equality, and diversity. And again, that's one thing I think you'll see that mirrors quite closely with the Holland Department of Public Safety's statement also. So one thing is inevitable in law enforcement: change. As law enforcement professionals, we will continue to look at ourselves and take steps to improve our level of service and advance our profession. And I strongly push the word profession because that's what we are and that's what we do. We hire and train the best employees, both us and the City of Holland. As chief executives of law enforcement officers, we run a business that is designed to perform a service to the public, and that's what we dedicate ourselves to. And I find that much with your chief of police as I work side by side with him often. Some of the great things that have taken place when I talk about collaboration, most recently, is the crisis intervention team. Mental health, it's a crisis situation in our communities. I think we know that. I have the opportunity to serve on the Governor's Mental Health Diversion Council, and seeing these crisis intervention teams, Chief Messer and I work together, bringing this together, working with county mental health to see probably the most successful program I have seen in law enforcement and in my 33 years at the Sheriff's Office. We are committed, and I'm working with our Board of Commissioners to expand that program for the county. And I think you have seen some of the numbers that Chief Messer may have talked about. Great success stories. We've diverted people from jail. We've diverted people into proper programs, diverted people into sessions that they need. And again, the success rate has just been overwhelming, and the community support's been overwhelming. Because again, we deal with mental health issues day in and day out in our communities. And a person sometimes does not need to go to jail. And we also deal with the mental health issues within our jail facility. So again, I'm basically here to say thank you to the City of Holland for allowing Chief Messer and his team and my team to collaboratively work together. We are constantly in contact with each other. A lot of crossover things take place. A lot of things cross over the bridge and the other sections. The backup situations that we cover each other with, the partnering and
Mr. Mayor, that
investigations,
is 5
because we are
minutes,
finding
sorry.
a lot of these investigations.
I'm sorry,
way
Sheriff,
over.
your time has expired.
Great.
But thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council.
Is there anyone else who would like to address council at this time? And would you please state your name and municipality for the record?
Ann Henriksen, Zealand, and thank you for that. That was awesome. I love the looks on your faces of approval as well. Good evening, City Council. We are so thankful for our country and for our local government. The solemn ceremonies at Pilgrim and Zealand cemeteries made it clear that freedom involves sacrifice and comes at a price. That is why you are here, and so are we. It is difficult to understand why the ordinance for anti-discrimination will not include the descriptive protection for tax-exempt nonprofit ministries, when in the last council meeting it was explicitly made clear that of the 8 exemptions mentioned in the ordinance, which you felt were important, this one not included and is resisted to be included. It begs the question, why? Mayor Box, at the night of the vote of the now Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Ordinance at about 1:30 a.m., you felt it best to table this very exact amendment to the tax-exempt nonprofit corporation that is organized and operated solely in part for religious purposes. The impression was, because it was so late, that you would visit it at another time. Unfortunately, this did not happen. Then in December 2021, Mayor Box, you declared Homeless Awareness Month. The Sentinel did an outstanding job in supporting this. Is this not what Gateway and Salvation Army plus other ministries do to help those in need? It seems that because these ministries believe in the power of God's word and operate solely and partially for this purpose, you would be very open to this getting done under your watch and repeated statement that all are welcome in Holland. Even the homeless are welcome, and biblical provisions offered by these ministries with so many volunteers and financial donors involved, and this council would graciously include this amendment of exemption. So again, why not? The city lawyer, Ron Vanderveen, carefully explained there is no problem and the religious freedoms are protected. He repeated what you said, Mayor Box, to the council when Councilman Hoekstra brought up religious freedom in the 2020 before the ordinance was adopted. In reading the ordinance, and I assume all council members have, and after many presentations of need, it should be clear that the amendment of exemption is needed regardless of the Constitution's assumed protections. The Constitutions are only as good as when they are interpreted as they should be, and not from judicial legislated laws. Furthermore, last council meeting, I gave the council members a folder that clearly explained we have a dangerous disconnect in that even the Supreme Court is challenged, as there are many states over people who exercise and express their religious right and freedom of speech, yet are accused of discrimination, resulting in them being hauled into court. Their legal fees go way beyond their ability to pay. So foundations like Alliance Defending Freedom, Liberty Council, Heritage Council, ACLUJ, step up to protect them. Many of these cases have gone to the Supreme Court. It's costly. We are not ignorant of these. Council, have you looked at the punitive consequences of the ordinance? Both the city lawyer and the mayor call these consequences teeth. Look at it again, liberally applied. Mayor Box, you're a lawyer. You attended Gateway's grand opening recently. Mr. Mayor, then why do you not want the homeless to be protected by including this amendment of exemption? Gateway gives the biblical gospel of salvation in Jesus Christ, and lives are given hope in a future. Gateway plans to open a 9-month residential facility because of the increase of fentanyl use, addictions, and suicides. They've been called by God to offer help, not just for the poor, but for those who are financially and professionally well off, but in the grips of addictions. These people need the help of God to walk forward in order to save their lives and their families. Gateway will be in even greater risk of being accused of discrimination because of their religious stand. They will not waver in this because they know that God is the only long-term answer, and many of you believe the same.
Mr. Mayor, that's 5 minutes.
Thank you. Sorry, your time has expired. Is there anyone else who would like to address council at this time? Seeing none, I will close the public comment period. Next item on the agenda, special order of the day public hearings. Item 7A, finance a PA 198 tax abatement for Hudsonville Creamery and Ice Cream Company LLC, 345 East 48th Street. Mr. Van Beek.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight, we have off the top a 198 tax abatement for Hudsonville Creamery and Ice Cream. I'm losing track of how many 198s this has been over the history, and even in my little over 4 years here, which is a good thing, but it really indicates the explosion of growth that you've seen with this particular company. In a moment, I'll ask, we have 3 representatives here, one from Lakeshore Advantage, President Jennifer Owens. We also have the CFO from Hudsonville, Rachel Glupker, and Steve Dykstra is also here, who's helping them with all of this growth and management that they're doing there also. Specifically before you tonight is not a 198 about the, as some of us like to say, the largest ice cream freezer in Michigan. I don't know if that's true or not. I have a sense that it probably is. But this is in particular for the expansion, which is both new and renovated office space for their facility. Specifically, the information is in your packet. It's a little over 49,000 square feet of new and a little over 11,000 of renovated. And it's looked at as being a $35.5 million investment. I'll make it short tonight. We know that I often give the, do you want 100% of nothing or 50% of something investment? When you take a look at companies that are able to make initial investment or expanded investments in different communities. And in Michigan, pretty much all communities participate to some extent in these 198 tax abatements that are specifically a state law that allows for participation in taxes, and really that's what it is. It's of 50% of new investment for a period of years, in this case 12 years. And for the city, that does come out to be either over the life of the 12-year abatement, estimated to be about $2.6 million in city taxes that would be paid. And in doing this, they're being forgiven approximately $1.3 million, but will also collect about $1.3 million. So again, I think this is a company that is really got deep roots now within the city. And with that, if I didn't say too much about the program, I'd like to invite Jennifer, or Rachel, or Steve to add anything and answer any questions that council might have.
Good evening.
Hi.
Hi, and would you please state your name and municipalities for the record,
Yeah,
please?
Jennifer Owens, City of Holland. It's a pleasure to be here and to introduce the Hudsonville team. I love what Keith said because the tax abatement tool is really laser focused on companies that export goods and services out of the region and bring resources back in. So companies like Hudsonville really could be located anywhere in the country or the world. They choose to be here, they don't have to be here. And that's why this tool is so important, to really double down on that base of employment. We all love their ice cream. I mean, come on, it's amazing. I don't know if anyone has not had it. If you don't, I'm sure Rachel can help you. But the growth of this company over time, our team has worked side by side with them. I think this is the 5th expansion project in maybe 5 years that we've worked with on them. So if you get a chance to go and drive by the facility, it's extraordinary. Really locally owned and held. And so with that, I don't, Rachel, if there's anything you want to add about what you're planning, and then we'll take questions.
Sure. Thank you. Hi, Rachel Glepker, Chief Financial Officer for Hudsonville Ice Cream. My municipality is Cascade Township. I've been at Hudsonville not quite 1 year now, so still new to the role, and heavy growth as City Manager Van Beek mentioned and as Jennifer mentioned as well. A lot of great expansion underway through our own existing brands and ice cream that we're producing for others, so that allows us to continue to grow in the community and invest in the community. We're now at 238 employees strong. As we continue to grow. So although the office space itself is not attributing job ads, we just received approval from Michigan Economic Development Corp for some other manufacturing expansion that we will be adding 76 jobs over the next 2 years. So continued significant manufacturing participation in the community through the Tulip Time Parade, and the employees that we're bringing in love being a part of the community, and we welcome that. So really exciting to be part of the growth at this time, and yeah, I would welcome any of you to come out if you want to take a look at the facilities. And it's obviously heavy under construction right now, but once it's done, it's going to be gorgeous facility that we're hoping to have the first part open by next month for our employee accommodations for the manufacturing facility, to have a break room, lunchroom, locker room, bathrooms, because that's been, the interim solution we've given them has not been, what we'd like it to be. But we're excited for what our new finished product will be, and we continue to bring new jobs to the area and be an employer of choice. So happy to answer any questions you
Great,
have.
wonderful, thank you. Any questions from council members? Yeah, Nikki, go ahead.
Just a funny one. I'm happy that you're expanding, and I do drive past it a lot, and it's remarkable. Did you start out in Hudsonville? I mean, you're located in Holland.
The company started
Yes.
in Burnups. 2026 will be the 100-year anniversary.
Oh,
So
really?
coming up
Okay.
on the 100-year, started in Burnups, and then moved out to, I think, right from Burnups to Holland. Is that right, Steve? Right from Burnups to Holland, and the Ellens family brought it here in 2003. They bought the company and moved it to Holland in 2004. So 18 years now strong in Holland.
Okay, thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
just kept the name Hudsonville.
That's right. Yeah, the brand recognition.
Any other questions from council members? Yeah, Quincy.
So you said you guys would be adding 76 employees. When I guess would that be done? Like, do you guys have a deadline or?
As
anything
quick
like
as we
that?
can find them.
Okay.
Technically, the incentive period will end December of next year,
Okay.
but if we can hire them all this year, we'll hire them all this year. I think like a lot of employers, even though we're well above average paying jobs for entry level in particular, we have a handful of salaried, but a number of hourly production roles. And although they're above average wage, it's still just hard to find people that want to get started right now, so.
Yeah, Lynn.
Yeah, actually, that I noticed on the letter from the MEDC that there's a portion of funding for hiring and training, and this nice collaboration between you all, GRCC, and so have you done that before, that kind of training program?
We had Michigan Works, and there's a Michigan New Jobs Training Program through GRCC that we've used before, and now this is an extension and expansion of both. which is great. So we use it both for some salaried roles, but certainly for hourly roles, for bringing new people in, food safety, quality training, safety, people safety training, things like equipment vendors, of having the vendor train our team on how to use new equipment. So it's been invaluable to us as we try to quickly scale and do so obviously with safety first. It's been a great program to have.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any other questions? Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep. This is an item that requires a public hearing, gives the public the opportunity to be able to address this particular item. Same rules apply as they do in our public comment period, that's a time limit of 5 minutes. And the one additional requirement here is that it must be on this item only. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address council in regard to this item? Seeing none, I will close the public comment period. What is the pleasure of council in regard to the PA 198 tax abatement for Hudsonville Creamery and Ice Cream Company, LLC?
Move we approve?
Moved by Hoekstra. Is there support?
Support?
Support by Corbin. Any discussion?
Your Honor.
Yes.
Quite often when we are looking at these 198 requests, it has become a tradition to ask a question about the jobs being created, as Quincy was talking about, and how much the pay structure is for those. And initially, we started asking that question, I think, to send the message that a wage is nice, a living wage is essential. Not only for the company's benefit, but for the worker, obviously, to enhance and create a positive standard of living in this community. I think the message is getting out because it's becoming less and less necessary to ask that question. Either it's been answered in the application already, and with Hudsonville Ice Cream, I think we all know the model that you've adopted in terms of wages that you offer and just your employment environment in general. So not going to ask the question because we already know you're head and shoulders above offering a livable wage, and I just want to take the opportunity again to applaud you and your company for taking that that stance and that viewpoint to value the employees' contributions and their welfare as well. So thank you for that.
Thank you for the comment.
Any other discussion by council members? I just want to echo what Dave said, and I want to also thank Hudsonville. You guys have been a great community partner and investor into the community, creating great jobs, creating lots of economic activity here. Love the ice cream drill team that's in the parades. A lot of fun, a lot of community spirit there, and you make an incredibly tasty product as well. It's delicious. And I think it's a real hallmark for the community and something that we can be proud of community-wide. So thank you very much for that. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Freeman.
Yes.
Peters.
Yes.
Corbin.
Yes.
Arnshorst.
Yes.
Hoekstra.
Yes.
Raymond.
Yes.
Byrd.
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Next item on the agenda, item 7B, Community Development Block Grant, approval of the 2022-2023 Annual Action Plan. Mr. Van Beek.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. This is an annual action. It says it even right in the title of what's required, but it's an annual action. It's an important action because it's a process led by our staff, Mark Cornelis, who's going to come up and make a presentation and answer any questions here momentarily, of how we specifically use these federal dollars, the Community Development Block Grant Program. And these are important dollars because they're dollars that we can use and target things that, quite frankly, we can't do in most cases with our city general fund dollars. So thank you for continuing this work, Mark. And I don't know if you have the clicker up there, so why don't you just kind of give me the signal, and I'll
Okay,
proceed
sounds good.
as necessary.
Great. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Yes, as Keith said, this is an annual encounter, or an annual visit from me for the purpose of seeking your approval for this annual action plan. I realize that many of you have been through this before, so I always try to create a balance of not giving too much information, but giving enough for those that might be on the newer side. So the annual action plan is an essential document that's required for the city to access the funds that the city is entitled to, but we got to jump through a couple of hoops, so to speak, to access those funds. And this plan is the core piece of that requirement. So the annual action plan is developed, as this slide says, by means of reviewing relevant data from the last year and relevant community data, census data, and the like, reviewing past program performance for programs that we funded in the past, and also an important part is gathering input from the community, not just along with community members, but also the nonprofit community in terms of what they're seeing in terms of the needs in the community. So the goal of the plan is to address those prioritized needs as we understand them. Of course, to remain aligned with the 5-year strategic plan. The annual plan is nested within a 5-year plan, and it's important that it fits within that 5-year plan. And then also, of course, to adhere to all of the relevant CDBG rules and guidelines. The contents of the plan are laid out on this next slide. The plan, it's about a 48-page document. It lists the community consultation process that we went through to come up with the priorities. It lists the resources that HUD is making available to us. And then it lays out projects, goals, and objectives for how we hope to spend those dollars. And then it also addresses kind of the city's role in terms of interacting with these sorts of issues that HUD is concerned about: affordable housing, public housing, homelessness and other special needs groups, poverty reduction in general, and then we touch on how we're dealing with lead-based paint. So before you now is the list of projects and the dollar amounts tied to each of the projects that we're proposing in the plan. By and large, it's a kind of a status quo plan, maybe with one exception, one minor exception, but I'll start at the top. I think most of you are familiar with our home repair program, so we have continued funding there. You might notice that that number might look a little lower than it has in the past. We are seeing fewer households coming through that program, which we're trying to address. We're hoping to boost those numbers. There's a number of reasons for that. And we've also made some programmatic changes that will take effect on July 1 that will make our benefit just a little bit more generous, so we can spend a little bit more dollars on these families, or on these households that qualify. As I think we all are experiencing, costs for basic home repair supplies are going up along with everything else. So even with the share of our cost, our share of the cost in these projects, the households are having to contribute a bit more. So we bumped our cap for non-lead projects from 8,000 to 10,000. And then we also made our sliding scale, which goes at the bottom end for those that are 80% of area median income, to a more generous contribution to those that are 30% or less of area median income, the most extreme lowest income households in the community. We made that sliding scale just a little smoother and a little bit more generous to try to be a little bit more help in that way. But the other reason why that number is a little bit smaller is because we have some unspent funds from the previous year. So we'll have plenty of dollars to meet the need next year, almost without question. The next category of spending is public improvements. Those are projects like sidewalks have been the most common ones that we've assisted with in the past, but we also have the ability to help with, for instance, park improvements in certain parks that are situated in certain locations in the community. And we could also do other types of infrastructure work. Street trees is another category that fits under that general category. So the newer one, the third category, homeownership assistance, it was in our 5-year plan, but when we put it in our 5-year plan, we were hoping to assist more directly in the 36th Street Habitat Jubilee project. And those plans sort of fell through for bureaucratic sorts of reasons. So now we're coming in at the back end and assisting the homeowners or the home buyers, I think they call them homeowner partners, with some of their closing costs and down payment costs at the time of purchase. So The money was there in our 5-year plan. We're just kind of redirecting it to a different phase of the process. And then those next two categories are status quo projects. Those are projects that we've assisted with for the last 2 years. And then fair housing services, again, they've been a Fair Housing Center of West Michigan has been a long-term partner of ours, probably going on 15 years. And we use a portion of our administrative dollars to help them with some of their costs in their local work. And then finally, the final category is program administration. That number represents a little over 13.5% of our grant. We're permitted to spend up to 20%, but we try to contain that and not overspend in that category. So all that amount of spending comes to $330,000. Our allocation this year is $322,894. But we always bring in, every year we bring in between a couple thousand to 12,000 or so in program income. So we've got, that allows us to kind of build a budget around $330,000. And then I'll just kind of describe, because I think it's an important part of our process, and it's very important to HUD that we take the public engagement process seriously. I'll just kind of walk through what we did this year in that regard. We held 2 in-person meetings at the library in January. Pretty low attendance, but reasonable attendance and good feedback received at those meetings. What was new this year was we built and administered an electronic survey. Well, it's both a paper and an electronic survey. I felt good about the number of responses we got, and that tool provided, I think, some very helpful feedback. The Neighborhood Improvement Committee, of course, is a part of gathering public feedback, and they reviewed the plan at 2 different meetings and made a recommendation to you folks for approval. And then we did, PUD requires a 30-day public comment period. That took place from April 27 to May 31, so that wrapped up yesterday. And as of that date, the only public comment that was received was from those in-person meetings and from the survey. And then a final public hearing will take place tonight. And I'll just briefly kind of summarize the public feedback that we received. We got a lot of feedback on a variety of issues, as you could probably imagine. But those issues that really rose to the top, both from the in-person meetings and from the survey, the one that rose to the top was the continued need for attention to the issue of affordable and safe housing. And then kind of falling just a little bit below that, attending to supportive services for persons experiencing homelessness, for persons experiencing domestic violence, kind of the more general issue of access to and adequacy of public transit, access to childcare services, and access to basic services, basic needs such as food security. And again, there were a whole host of other issues that were addressed, but those 5 or 6 were the ones that rose to the top. So I will pause there and entertain any questions.
Yep. Questions from council members? Yeah, Quincy.
I have a few questions. How many people attended, please say in total?
Attended?
January, I'm sorry, the January
Yep.
24th and 25th.
I think my note said 14. Yep.
Have you guys thought about spreading that out more? Like, first of all, let me ask this. Were those the same meetings or were they a continuation?
Same content, one held during daytime hours, one held during the evening. I didn't mention that I recorded myself doing the presentation and made that available online, and then that was tied to the electronic survey. So that was an attempt to, yep.
Then a couple other questions. Can you go back to the data, the spreadsheet, right there, the outcome goals? I don't understand, I guess I don't understand that as much. Looking at public improvement, and we have 400 persons. I understand the 6 households or maybe the 30 households. I don't understand I guess the person and the public improvement and
So that's a ballpark estimate on my part. What we're looking at is a section of sidewalk between essentially Highway 31 or just north of Highway 31 where Central crosses 31 and then extends to 40th. So I did a rough estimate of how many households or persons I would estimate would kind of make use of that sidewalk. Not a scientific number.
Okay. Then my last question is, I do not remember what the homelessness outreach and prevention are.
Yep,
Can you
yep.
touch on those quickly for me?
So outreach is a specific program operated by Community Action House. I think it's about its third or fourth year, fourth or fifth. It's a team. It started out with one person, grew to two. I think it's more like 4 or 5 now. They use AmeriCorps members to help with their work, but they're out in the community, not just in Holland, but throughout Ottawa County, but certainly with a focus in Holland, doing outreach to persons that are unhoused. So either living on the street, living out of their cars. So they're reaching out to those folks, helping them access services, ultimately ideally helping them access housing. And then the prevention / rehousing program is operated by Good Samaritan Ministries. So these are folks that are coming to Good Samaritan for assistance, and our funds kind of fill a gap in terms of who they can serve, because CDBG allows us to go to between 50 to 80% of area median, and most of Good Samaritan's funds stop at 50% of area median. Our funds just allow them to serve a little bit of a different group if as needed. And then, I think there's some other ways that they use our dollars that kind of fill a gap.
Cool, thank you.
Might want to turn my mic on, huh? It's really cool to see this collaboration. I mean, the partnership with the city and nonprofits, it's Holland leads the way, for sure. All the nonprofits that you touched on, including Lakeshore Habitat for Humanity, these are all nonprofits that have touched my life. Homeless at one time, and all of these people, all these nonprofits and the people who associated with them, including Lynn, as I spoke about, have helped me tremendously. So I have a thankful heart for the work that they do and the collaboration that the city does with them.
Great.
So thanks.
And I'm glad to be in that kind of intermediary role of kind of helping make some of those connections. So.
Any other questions, comments from council? Yes, Nikki.
Yes, we were chatting a little bit about this at dinner tonight, and I agree with Quincy. It's an amazing program. And how long, we're thinking, did it start in the 70s? When did this kind of grant?
The legislation that created Community Development Block Grant was in the 70s. The City of Holland didn't become a grantee until the 80s, 86 maybe. Might be off by a year or two. I'm not sure why we weren't a grantee. Now the guidelines would suggest that a city would need a population of about 50,000 to qualify, but we qualify at 33 because we're grandfathered in. We became qualified in around 86 or 87, and we've maintained our eligibility ever since then. So we're considered an entitlement. We don't have to apply for these funds. They're available to us if we write a plan that meets your muster and passes HUD's muster. So that's fortunate.
It's kind of interesting from your point of view, like what is our definition of success? It's just an ongoing thing. You're always kind of, your work is never finished.
Unfortunately, I think that's true, yeah.
Yeah, so I appreciate the collaboration with the other agencies, and it looks so successful, and yet, it's always necessary, and you will always be.
It's not a huge amount of funding, but I think that's the goal here, is to try to make the best use of it and make it go as far as we can and spread it out where we see the greatest need. So.
And is there a meeting tomorrow about this, or is that something else you're involved in? That's a neighborhood, different.
The South Shore Village meeting, unrelated to this.
Yeah. But I mean at Herrick.
Pardon?
At Herrick in the morning.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, that's sort of related. That's related to some work that the Neighborhood Improvement Committee is doing to rewrite or to update its neighborhood improvement strategy, which, yeah,
okay.
does definitely have some connections with this effort.
Good, thank you.
Any other comments, questions from council members? Seeing none, thank you. Thanks, Mark. This also requires a public hearing. So if there's anyone in the audience who would like to address council in regard to this particular item, this is your opportunity to do so. Is there anyone who would like to address council? Seeing none, I will close the public comment period. What is the pleasure of council in regard to the Community Development Block Grant, the approval of the 2022-2023 Annual Action Plan?
Move to adopt the annual action plan.
Moved by Raymond. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Ernst. Any discussion by council members? Seeing none, Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Peters? Yes. Corbin? Yes. Aaronshorst?
Yes.
Hoekstra?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Byrd?
Yes.
Freeman?
Yes.
Mayor Box?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item number 9, written petitions and communications. We do not have any this evening, but I wanted to point out that we do have an email address. If you wanted to address council and are not able to attend a meeting in person, you can always send us an email at publiccomment@cityofholland.com. That's publiccomment@cityofholland.com. That will get in front of all of the council members. We read those, and then we accept them into the record at our regular meetings. We don't read them out loud at the meetings, but we do all read them ourselves. Next item number 11, the 2022 report and recommendation on boards, commissions, and committees, analysis and improvements. Mr. Van Beek.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. So you have before you the result of work by a subcommittee of all of you. That was the mayor and Lynn and Nikki, where we took a look at, and we had to dust a little bit off of it, admittedly, work that Ottawa County Planning and Performance Improvement did for us a couple years ago. I'm not going to go through it in detail because we spent an appropriate amount of time going through this a couple weeks ago at a study session. We captured some of the comments. We made a handful of kind of minor edits or adds in that report. I'm happy to answer any questions about that. What the recommendation is tonight is that you would formally approve this report that has a set of recommendations in it. And I'm already working with Cinca, where Cinca has a lot of gifts, and one of them is to take something like this that has multiple moving parts and different things that we want to move forward. And she's really going to be one more thing that she's going to make sure that we're hitting some milestones and we're moving forward on some things like gathering the information to update our website, our advertising, recruiting, and appointment processes. We really already were starting to implement those, so we'll just make sure that we continue to follow those types of things. And there's a few things that we're going to come back and have conversations with you about, but we'll make sure that we're also giving you updates when we make some of these implementations so that you can see what we're putting into place. So again, this was a report that you discussed at some detail. Happy to answer any questions, but otherwise the recommendations is for you to adopt this report, and then staff will go about our work in implementing those recommendations.
Great, thank you. Questions, comments from council members? I just have, oh, go ahead,
Well, I was
Nikki.
gonna
No,
say,
go
I'm
ahead.
glad that Cinca is doing that, because that's always the anxiety with anything, just like with the community energy plan. Okay, we've got it, now what? You know, someone has to keep after it and keep it up to date. So, good for her. Thank you.
Anyone else? And I was going to comment, this is one of the most important parts of the functioning of this governmental body. We've got great staff that implements things on a daily basis. We at the council make policy decisions, but there is an awful lot of work and an awful lot of discussion that is done by our boards, committees, and commissions. We as council members act as liaisons to a number of those, but there's an awful lot of members of the public where that is their way to have a direct impact on what happens in this community and the decisions that are made. And we often take their recommendations and then turn them into policy in this community. Very important that we've got a healthy and robust structure for that. There's more than 24 boards, committees, and commissions out there with varying numbers of members, and it can get easily become a daunting task of making sure that all of those seats are filled with good people who are interested in doing the best thing for the community. And we've been very, very blessed in this community that we've had a lot of people who have been willing to step forward and fill those roles and help in the governance of this great city. And I just want to make sure that we continue that process, and I think that this report and the changes and recommendations that are here are going to be a good opportunity to do that and make sure that this community stays healthy for decades to come. What is the pleasure of council in regard to the accepting of the 2022 report and recommendation on boards, commissions, and committees for analysis and improvements?
Move to approve 2022 report recommendation, boards, commissions, and committees, analysis, and improvements.
Moved by Byrd. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Vreeman. Any discussion? Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Corbin? Yes. Ernshorst?
Yes.
Hoekstra?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Byrd?
Yes.
Vreeman?
Yes.
Peters? Mayor Box?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 12C1, Magnus Capital Partners Home Flats, payment in lieu of taxes, otherwise known as a pilot, and a municipal services agreement. I'm going to turn that right over to Mr. Vanderveen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the challenges of providing housing for persons of low income is to make it something that's doable by private investors. And secondly, compensating the city for the services that are provided by the city. So by statute, Michigan has authorized the city to make a property that qualifies as low-income project to be tax exempt, so that the developer is not taxed in the normal real estate ad valorem type property tax method. And in place of that, then, the city has the discretion of whether to allow that exemption or not. Then in return, the developer agrees to pay a fee to the city, a payment in lieu of taxes, based on income of the project. So rather than a ad valorem property tax that's based on the value of the property, it's based on the income generated by the property. And here we have a proposed project that would be developed at 24th Street and Waverly, where the developer would pay 4% of their revenue to the city in lieu of taxes. This would continue on for up to 40 years as long as they're qualified as low-income housing development. And then on top of that, that would be taken in lieu of taxes and then divided with the taxing entities. Then in addition, there'd be the municipal services agreement, which would compensate the city for policing, fire protection, and those type of services, with a payment that starts out at $20,000 per year and then continues for the term of the pilot with an increase with the Consumer Protection Index, or excuse me, Consumer Price Index, each year as this goes forward. The developer, there's some conditions. The developer has to comply with the agreements, of course, but the developer also has to qualify for a MSHDA loan, mortgage loan, in order to go forward, and that's something that's down the road. But your action that's being recommended tonight is that you adopt the resolution that would grant the tax exemption and then approve the execution of the development agreement and the municipal services agreement.
Can we do that in one item, Ron, or do you want us to do that in two separate ones?
They're all so closely related, you can do that as one motion.
All right, great, thank you. Any questions for City Attorney? Yes, Lynn.
What is the term of the pilot?
It's up to 40 years. The mortgage loan, they will apply for the mortgage loan, and it will most likely be granted for 35 or 40 years. But what it will last as long as that mortgage loan is there, but not longer than 40 years without coming back to you for approval for a new one. long past all of our times here.
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Freeman.
Ron, I'm questioning, in that presentation, they had some commercial or merchants on the first floor of that. Is that all included in this proposal?
The parts that are not used for low-income housing would be taxed in the normal manner. This only applies to the portions that are used for low-income housing. Maybe a little complicated for the assessor to do that, but he does that for development, so dividing the taxable versus the non-taxable part of it.
Any other questions, comments from council? Yeah, Quincy.
Comments. And for that, there were, I forget the breakdown, but out of that, it was right over 100 for units that would be, I guess, associated with this, right?
Yeah, and council, be reminded, but for those watching, this was an item of some robust and some really good conversation in our study session last week that included our assistant city manager for economic development, Ryan Kilpatrick, who's very involved in this, not only for the city, but also regionally, but also Vishal Arora, who is the representative, the owner of this company. So Quincy, you asked, there's 191 housing units involved in this, and there's a breakdown of when they take a look at AMI, area median income, and they never quite know, right, until this goes through the entire process, and then they take application screening procedures and everything, and then they have to audit those results back to us at the end of every year, and probably more importantly to the state. But yeah, it was, most of these are falling in the lower AMI range. But there are some markets that can be mixed into that, and Ryan gave a really good example of that, where what we're looking for is someone maybe over the course of, let's say, 3 years, their income actually makes it so that they don't qualify for assistance anymore. They can continue to live in this development as part of kind of a new neighborhood for them.
Any other questions, comments from council members? Seeing none, what is the pleasure of council in regard to the Magnus Capital Partners Home Flats Payment in lieu of Taxes Development Agreement and the Municipal Services Agreement?
Move to approve their recommendation.
Moved by Vreeman. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Byrd. Any discussion? Yeah, go ahead, Lynn.
This is always really exciting to me when this kind of stuff we just agree on it. And it's just, you said it the other night at the study session that this is our priority, to create affordable housing opportunities for the community. And it just is really great when it happens. And right on the tails of the tax abatement to Hudsonville Creamery, they're going to need employees, and folks are going to need places to live. So this is just really exciting. So, yeah.
Any other comments? Lynn, you took the words right out of my mouth. That was almost exactly. It's almost anticlimactic for something that is such a big priority for us, that it just kind of sails right through without a whole lot of notice. But yeah, we did say affordable housing is one of the top priorities for this council, and it is a huge economic development issue. I think that people sometimes lose that connection when they're talking about that. We need workforce housing, and I was going to also mention the Hudsonville ice cream that said, hey, we need employees. And those employees need places to live, and they need places to live that they can afford to live in. And if we don't have affordable housing in this community for the people that would be working at Hudsonville, that would be working at the other companies, that's going to be devastating economically for this community. If we want to make sure that this community keeps moving forward, keeps being successful economically, we need to make sure that we as a city and as a council are partners in projects like this, that allows for some flexibility, that we have the ability to be able to receive the resources that we need as a city to be able to provide services for this area, but also that that developers are able to develop projects like this in a way that is affordable, that can make it happen. Because without these kinds of projects and these kinds of programs, this development wouldn't happen. And so I think it's really important that we keep that in mind, and that the public keeps that in mind as well, that affordable housing is one piece of a larger economic development puzzle, that all of those pieces need to be there. All of those pieces need to be in play in order for this community to be able to keep moving forward. So with that, Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Ernst,
Yes.
Hoekstra,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Byrd,
Yes.
Freeman,
Yes.
Peters, Corbin, Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, which is one that was moved from the consent agenda, item 12E 4.2, the quarterly investment report. Mr. Van Beek.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. And I'm going to ask Lynn McCammon to come on up. And I think we were both kind of excited when we heard that this might get pulled off, because for those of you that you may or may not have noticed when you do your reading, but Lynn, like a lot of other things that she's improved this investment report. So this gives an opportunity to really highlight that a little bit, and accept certainly my thanks, Lynn, for your continuous improvement in making this a meaningful report. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for pulling this so I could highlight, as Keith mentioned. So included in your report was the quarterly investment report. And you may notice we do that every quarter, as we are required to do so with our investment policy. But we've now completed making some enhancements to some of our larger documents and initiatives, like the budget and the audit reporting. So we're tackling some of our reports that are more focused in the department. So the first one you have here is the investment report. So while we do include some of the information we had before, we try to provide a little bit more analysis and give you information in manners that something might stick out if you want to ask about it. So I'll just highlight what we've included and give a little bit background while I have the opportunity. So in accordance with the State of Michigan's Public Act 20 and then our own city's investment policy, we are required to report certain information to council. And so we include information in the overview, just kind of give you an idea of how our funds are allocated to the different funds. And so we at the city, we pool all of our cash together, which means we take the cash from the general fund and from some of our fiduciary funds, and we combined it, and we do that because it's more efficient to invest that way, and we get better returns. So that's called pooled investments. You may hear me talk about that. So that's kind of what that is. And then we also kind of look to see how the portfolio is broken down by the type of security. So we are restricted by Michigan state law and our investment policy as to what type of investments we can invest in. And really how it works is GFOA kind of recommends this, and those two documents reinforce it. Our primary objectives investing for a city are legality, safety, liquidity, and yield, and it's in that order. So we want to make sure that we invest in securities that are legal, and they're pretty defined by the state statute, so we don't have many choices there. And then we really want to make sure they're safe, because we're stewards of our citizens' resources, so we want our safeties, at the top of the line there. And then liquidity is important because we have to pay our bills, right? So we want to make sure that we don't tie all of our investments up in the latest great investment that we might not want to sell at a loss because we have to pay a bill. So we have to mind our cash flow. We do a cash flow analysis to make sure we have enough liquid funds on hand to do so. And then finally, yield. With the money, we do want to make some return, right? Because as everybody's noticed, the market's kind of volatile. We want to make some return on what we can in a safe manner. So I kind of talk about portfolio composition, and you can see it's kind of typical. We do hold a significant amount of liquid funds. Right now, our total portfolio is about $50 million, and actually about 55% of that is more liquid. And that's really because we are still kind of determining what we need to allocate those fiscal recovery funds to. So when we come up with a true allocation, we will match that funding with investments that mature at the same time frame, again, trying to capture a little bit more yield on those funds. So I also provided a little bit of information on a brief economic overview and tried to highlight some of the things we should be on the lookout that might impact us at the city. For example, the inflation, right? We kind of saw it during budget. Inflation, what that means for us is we are looking at, and when we go to purchasing, in fact, I spent half a day on purchasing, answering calls because we're just having trouble getting bids. We're having trouble with the prices coming back. We had a couple requests for equipment purchases earlier to save that increase that was going up. So that's what we're looking at with inflation, how it impacts us. And then we also look at the returns because with the money we do invest, we kind of track similarly to the shorter end of the investment spectrum. So I kind of gave you a brief chart from the Federal Reserve that kind of shows what those short-term rates, because you can see where COVID hit and everything just went down right away. And now with inflation, we're seeing almost as drastic of an increase on those rates. So finally, we take a look at investment income because we really want to see how that's tracking. And we can see that investment income for the first 3 quarters is just a little under $200,000, which admittedly is a little less than the prior year. And I included a chart to kind of try to illustrate how we structure our portfolio. And so again, I mentioned we keep a lot liquid. Well, liquid investments haven't been paying anything, as you probably all know from your own savings accounts. So that obviously brings our rate a little lower. But the remainder that we kind of allocate to a core position, we kind of ladder it out over a 5-year period. And what that does is it affords us the ability to kind of systematically reinvest so we kind of smooth out our earnings and we don't get as impacted by those spikes. So you can see we kind of lag behind the movement because, for example, when COVID hit and all the rates immediately went to zero, we still had investments that were paying a higher rate. So we kind of were able to smooth that out. Now that interest rates are starting to turn, it's kind of like at home, right? We've seen all the mortgage rates are going up pretty quickly, right? But I'm guessing most of your savings accounts aren't increasing at that same rate. So again, we're in that position, so we're a little bit lagging behind when the rates go up. But overall, if you looked at it over time, by doing a systematic approach to your investments, you kind of smooth out those investment earnings. So then finally, I do include, so everybody can look in detail, what those securities are that we do hold. And we give information on like the original cost, and we do put the market value, but I want to remind you that it is our policy to hold our investments to maturity. And just as I mentioned before, we don't want to get caught where we are trying to game the system because really that's not our job. We're not investment managers, and so we try to be mindful of the safety being one of the primary objectives. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions about this quarter's report, and then we will continue to make enhancements as we go through the year on this report.
Yeah. Questions? Lynn?
Yeah, thank you. That was really interesting. And I did appreciate the new format. So that just caught my eye. So I'm wondering 2 things. You talked about not being investment managers. So who decides how the money gets, like what you invest in?
Right, so that's good. So again, I know I've said this before, but I really look to GFOA best practices. And it is true, finance directors, most of us went to school for accounting. Now some larger municipalities like Grand Rapids, for example, they have a separate position that's just a treasurer. So that's when I talked about systematic approach. So GFOA recommends competitive bidding, which is kind of interesting how you apply that to investments. So for example, the systematic part comes in that we try to allocate so much dollars towards each quarter over a 5-year period, and then so we always have something coming due that we can replace it with. And so then we take and we do a competitive process. When we know, for example, we need something maturing in quarter 2 of a certain year, we'll send it out to 3 different investment advisors, and we have them submit, because it's interesting, an investment advisor two investment advisors could quote the same actual security, but it's their little bit of a margin that could be a difference. So again, being mindful that we want to do the best resources for our citizens and use of our funds, we do the competitive process and always go with the lowest cost to the city or the highest return in this case.
I
So
see. That's helpful. And then what percentage of the budget is the income from your investments?
it's very minimal, as you can imagine, because our budget is so a little over 200,000, but yet our overall budget for the general fund only was 26 million. So you can imagine it's very small. Yes.
Yeah, Nikki.
Your portfolio composition, do you follow kind of what regular investors do? A little bit of treasury, a little bit. I mean, I see your pie here, but how?
Right.
Who's
Right.
making that decision?
So it's interesting, right? So we our current investment policy is a little more general to that, but I am looking to in the next in the year kind of come back with a little bit more structured as to how many percents, because an investment policy can basically tell you what your limits are, right? So right now we are not limited specifically, but we're limited to types of investments. So all investments are specifically stated in the Public Act 20 of Michigan, which we follow. And so really they're mostly like fixed income, very safe. But we do want to make sure as a matter of practice that we have some diversification as well. So we do try to look at how much we have, but we are thinking about proposing a little bit more guidelines. They would never be so strict because sometimes municipals are better investment depending on what it is than a treasury. But generally, we try to just make sure we are not over 50% in any one type of security.
Are you allowed to do international funds or foreign?
No. Right now, for example, they're looking at PA 20 from the state's, there's an initiative underway to look at it because right now we, and the city here, we cannot invest in even a bank or another municipal that's out of the state of Michigan. And the concern that they're bringing up is that, so say Michigan, as just Michigan, all of a sudden has something that significantly impacts our economy. Well, we can't invest in our neighboring states or anything if their economies are still improving. So we can only invest, right? So we're kind of limited. So they're looking at that and some other enhancements. So I thought once that process is completed, we'll then look at our investment policy at the city to make sure that we also reflect any changes that are made.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? Great. I believe we need to do a vote on this because it was not included as part of the consent agenda. So what is the pleasure of council in regard to the quarterly investment report?
Move that we approve the quarterly investment report.
Moved by Aaron's Horse. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Raymond. Any discussion? Yeah. Okay. I was thinking voice vote on this as well. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Lynn. Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is 12E6.1 gifts. Kathy, would you please review the gifts for us?
The city manager's office is pleased to report the following gift. Department of Public Safety Services, Police Operation, Catherine Hobbs, $200. It is recommended that these donations be accepted with appreciation, credited to the appropriate account, and an expression of gratitude be forwarded to said donors.
Great, thank you. What is the pleasure of council in regard to the gift this week?
You're good. I had the
Go
last
ahead,
one.
Nikki. Go
I
ahead.
did the last one.
No, go ahead, Nikki.
Oh, no, I insist. Move that, I don't even know what we're doing. Move that we accept the gifts with pleasure and appreciation.
Moved by Airsource. Is there support, Mr. Byrd?
Yes, there is support.
Supported by Byrd. All those in favor, or any discussion? I'm sorry, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, 12E6.2, Human Resources Reclassification of 2 Recreation Positions. Mr. Van Beek.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. HR Director Jennifer Orm is here tonight. Andy was not able to join us tonight, But before Jen starts, I just want to kind of do a general reminder of why is this in front of you, as opposed to we always have things happening in the HR department. So just structurally, policy-wise, when we have open positions, and that happens, right? You are approving budgets that allows us to go through those rehire type situations. But when we specifically take a look at changing the compensation or the structure of one of those positions that changes the budget, then we always take those back in front of you. So periodically you'll see these. And I think you see these, and I think actually it's a really good thing from my perspective organizationally that periodically we bring these types of recommendations to you. Because what that means from my perspective is that we don't every time just go, okay, we have someone that's retired or left the organization for whatever reason, and we just go, okay, well, let's plug and play and do the same thing. What we do is we do an analysis and look at all of those things as an opportunity. And sometimes what we do is, as the amount of work that we have, as communities change, sometimes we tweak those positions. And Jen is going to go through and explain why we're requesting tweaking to those positions and recreation today. So thanks, Jen.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Yes, so like Keith said, we have an opportunity. We did have a voluntary resignation within the department, and so Andy and Garrett started to kind of look at the structure and look at the programming and the needs within the department. They came to Human Resources, then we met with Keith, and we all are in agreement that this is the right move at this point. Our Recreation Department has been doing some incredible things, especially with programming, and so really with this opportunity, we looked at it to say, you know, could we do better, could we do more, and could we be more efficient with our staff? And we think that we can. And so they're not huge tweaks. You'll see that one of the positions is actually an increase, and it's moving the Recreation Coordinator 2 position up by 2 levels. Not a huge increase to the cost, but definitely something that is listed in the cost sheet under $8,000, I think, annually. And then also looking at the other Recreation 1 coordinator position and looking at that position as a downgrade. And so actually making it more of a coordinating assistant. I think the technical title is Recreation Program Assistant. And so this person would be having less responsibility, but would report directly to the other Coordinator 2 position and be assisting with some of the programming and actually kind of being the boots on the ground too, which would take a lot of the overtime off of the Recreation 2 coordinator position. So even though we do say it is a slight increase in cost annually, about $6,500, that might be less due to the decrease with the reclassification of the Recreation Coordinator 2 position, because that position currently, not having direct supervision, is eligible for overtime, and with this reclassification and the new responsibilities, it would actually be changing to an exempt or not eligible for overtime, just due to the nature of the job and the position. So we think this makes perfect sense, and so we're coming to you tonight asking for that reclassification, the one increase, the other decrease, and looking for your approval.
Great. Thank you. Questions from council members? Well explained.
All
Great.
right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What is the pleasure of council in regard to the reclassification of 2 recreation positions?
Move to approve those reclassifications.
Moved by Vreeman. Is there support? Support by Byrd. Any discussion? Yes, Mr. Hoekstra.
Yeah, I got grandkids now who are getting into this recreational soccer and baseball, and what's even cooler, I shouldn't say cooler, interestingly, equally, is dance and drama, which is kind of new stuff, I think, and it's amazing, the quality of programming that's connected with that, it's carried out with. The coaches that I've seen anyway are incredible. So just kudos to the department for continuing to do a great, great job. Hopefully this will enhance the program more, but it's they're doing great stuff, so please pass that on if you would.
Any other comments?
No,
Yes.
I'm glad that you look at these positions when changes come about. I mean, that shows, you're light on your feet, and as situations change, we can save money, add programming, take away programming we don't need anymore. I think that's a tribute to the way our city works. So thank you.
Any other discussion? Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Hoekstra,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Byrd,
Yes.
Freeman,
Yes.
Peters, Corbin, Arnshorst,
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. We are to the second item that was removed from the consent agenda. Item K from the consent agenda is item 12E 6.6, Management and Administrative Services, the 2023 Strategic Plan and Business Plan. Mr. Van Beek.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. You have in front of you the strategic business plan for 2023. This also was on a study session. I got the sense that people had read it, didn't have any questions on it at that point, which is fine. I'm not going to go through it this evening, but I certainly can answer any questions that you might have.
Questions from council members?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
didn't
go ahead,
have
Lynn.
any questions, but as somebody who works for an organization, albeit tiny in comparison to the city of Holland, and we create a strategic plan, it represents a very small portion of the work that we do. And I felt like it was important to show the document in public and say, this kind of represents council priorities, and I think it represents it well, but that's only part of the day-to-day operations of the city. So it's a lot of work went into the document, and I felt like it just was important to make a public statement of it. So that was my thing.
Well,
Great.
I
Nikki.
like, may I say,
Yeah.
I like the way this is organized. Somehow this was clear also. I said, oh yeah, that's exactly what we do. It was, when you, like others had colors and the yellow and the green and all that, and that's good. It tells us how we're doing, but this somehow, the adaptation for this document is so much clearer for the way my brain works. So I appreciate that. So thanks for taking it off the agenda.
Any other comments from council members? Seeing none, what is the pleasure of council in regard to the 2023 Strategic Plan and Business Plan?
Move that we approve this strategic plan.
Moved by Aaronsource. Is there support? Support by Vreeman. Any discussion? Kathy, would you please call the roll? I think this one deserves a roll call.
Raymond,
Yes.
Byrd,
Yes.
Freeman,
Yes.
Peters, Corbin, Arnshorst,
Yes.
Hoekstra,
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. Item number 13, communications from the city manager, Mr. Van Beek.
Only two things tonight. One, I just encourage to, all of our events are starting, our outdoor concerts, our street performance series. So I did add in to be on the agenda for next week for a study session. So unless some smiles that maybe that one.
Appointments, communications from the mayor. I just have two items, one past, one future. Monday was Memorial Day. Was my Memorial Day as mayor, but my downtown at Mayor Pro Tem Corbin said to me, in between the two, he said, people all to honor those that have served, to see the community do, and humbling, as Scott said, to see that people that were out there, to be able to be. It is a shotgun start. You are not allowed to dig a moment. Air horn goes at 9 for a 5-gallon bucket. 5-gallon bucket. Location will have a check-in location. She's checked in American Bloom for over 10 years now. I've been on that committee for 10 years. Started out a private citizen who was. Well, we have not competed the last few years, and what that means is there's been money available. Bucket full, 9 a.m. on Saturday. Appointments, motions, communications from council members.
Turn my mic on again. Of May. serving in the U.S. military. Originally or holding family. There, you know, that sentence here, it marks the beginning. Belinda is not here, and she's a veteran as well. This is a holiday that has huge, but moment. So I want to say, but Memorial. I had a friend die in the war, and it's the knock at the door. Your loved one died, and being thanked for their service and their contribution to the country when they're standing on their own. Even going into the military, I'm sure it crosses their mind, but never crosses their mind as this could be a reality. The memories of those who sacrificed, the ultimate sacrifice for Americans of America. Christian, if you're not a Christian, we all are Americans. And for me, I wanted to take this time for us to reflect and all of those souls, how we deem our lives, how we want to pursue happiness, how we want to. If I not, it doesn't matter.
Thank you, Quincy. Just one motion.
Move to adjourn.
Move agreement. Is there support?